It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy Ihnatko is here. Alex Lindsay and filling in for Jason Snell. Yay, Micah Sargent. We'll talk about why artists make more on Apple Music per stream, Trump's tariff proposal that could cost Apple a lot of money, why it's safe to use Apple's fluoroelastomer bands, at least Apple says so, and why you should never leave your 1040 in a company printer. Or maybe you should. MacBreak Weekly is coming up next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 957, recorded Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. Slap and flop. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Apple. Jason Snell is on assignment today. Fortunately, we don't care because we've got Micah Sargent in his place. Hi, Micah.
Hello, Leo. Hello, everyone.
Did you just get off iOS today? You're working hard today.
Actually, we record the show every 2 weeks, so this is not
okay.
a record day, which is nice. This is my first show of the day, so I'm happy to be here.
Good morning. As Tim Cook might.
Good morning.
Also with us from, but obviously I don't need to introduce Micah, but I will. He is, of course, the host of iOS Today, as you may have gathered on this network, Tech News Weekly. He's doing such a great job. And, of course, whenever we can get him on, we get him on Hands on Tech and all of those wonderful shows. Thank you for being here, Micah. Andy Ihnatko is here, GBH Bostone in Bostonia. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, we're under a gale warning. You might be.
Oh.
It's you can tell when it's bad when like I don't wear my usual hat. I'll wear like a baseball cap, and then it's doubly bad when I take 2 steps out and I have to actually turn the bill backwards to keep from losing it. So.
It's better than a Karen warning. That's all I'm saying. Enjoy your
Karen Allen.
I thought it was funny. That was a good
warning.
One.
This movie's going to be awesome because Karen Allen is in it.
Karen Allen is awesome. And Mr. Alex Lindsay from OfficeHours.global. Hello, Alex.
Hello. It's good to be here.
Wonderful to see you. Sorry about your Steelers, but
it
do
happens.
you kind of get a little? Do you get a little Eagles pride anyway? I mean,
there is a hierarchy of cheering that has to go on here, but I'm very split in the Super Bowl because after the Steelers are out, I usually then decide, well, what Steelers that we know well are playing in other teams. The problem is that Kenny Pickett is playing for the Eagles and Juju Smith-Schuster is playing for the Chiefs. I'm split. I think that I'm leaning towards the Eagles mostly because they're from Pennsylvania, but also because it'd be great. I really liked Kenny Pickett. He grew up as an Eagles fan, and for his second season, if they even let him play a couple, to walk out on a Super Bowl and play a couple of plays at the end of the end or middle, they probably won't. But if he gets to play a little bit, that'd be kind of a dream come true for a kid who wanted to play football. so I think I'd love to see that. I think I don't really care who wins. So
nice.
I just looking for the
We're
human
talking
stories.
about sport ball for those who are confused by the whole.
Yeah, but there at least there is a Super Bowl tie-in for iOS news this week. So
what is there?
Yes, Paul Kafalsis, who one of the greatest Mac developers of all time, wrote a blog post in which he basically pointed out how bad Apple Intelligence is, even with the new update. He basically gave it questions about who won the last Super Bowl, who won the previous one. He discovered that it could correctly name 20% of the past 58 Super Bowl winners, and the rest of it. He did a really good, amusing. He was not an angry takedown of Apple Intelligence, but a sort of dumbfounded, oh my God, well, I got to give it a softball. It's got to get this right. No, didn't get that right. The pull line from the blog post that I think should be on a T-shirt is that the only good thing that Apple Intelligence asked me was, would you like me to look this up on OpenAI? Would you like to switch to OpenAI for this?
It used to say, here's what I found on the web. It doesn't. Yeah, it's kind of, this Siri, the headline, John Gruber reporting on this, Siri is super dumb and getting dumber. So he did his own test and confirmed Kafasis's results. Other answer engines handle the same questions with aplomb, writes Gruber. He says, I didn't run a comprehensive test from Super Bowls 1 through 60 because I'm lazy.
Also, Paul Harvey did it, so
it couldn't do it, but everybody else could. And well, I mean, I don't know. Do you? Yeah.
My question is, did it used to be able to answer this question when it wasn't trying to do all of these smarts, and when it was more reliant on something like Wolfram Alpha, for example, that likely has access to this information directly?
So
that's a good point.
Gruber composed his own very bizarre, very obscure question. Who won the 2004 North Dakota High School Boys State Basketball Championship?
Always wondered that, actually.
I've wondered that.
I thought it was from Pennsylvania. Is he trying to like eke out some North Dakota glory for himself?
Apparently he was a schoolboy basketball player, but that's the only connection. He says, a question I completely pulled out of my keister, but which amazingly, Kagi answered correctly for Class A. ChatGPT did both Class A and B and provided a link to a video of the Class A championship on YouTube.
Wow.
DuckDuckGo got partial credit, but old Siri, which is to say pre-Apple Intelligence Siri, does okay in the same question.
Yeah.
He says she declined to answer the question and provided a list of links, search engine style, including a 2-page PDF listing the complete history of North Dakota Class A Boys and Girls Championships. Yeah. However, new Siri, powered by Apple Intelligence with ChatGPT integration enabled, gets the answer, and this is the real problem, completely but plausibly wrong, which is the worst way to get it wrong, he writes. It's also inconsistently wrong. He tried the same question 4 times, got 4 different answers. Some of them completely made up. In 2004, the Dickinson Midgets.
Oh,
the
no.
North Dakota Class A Boys.
Oh, no.
Okay.
That's from the boomer version of ChatGPT.
I don't. If that's the mascot, I don't know.
Yeah.
The Dickinson Midgets did, in fact, win in 2003. So I guess there's something to be said. Anyway, he goes on and tries a bunch of stuff. And
Micah had a good point. It's like the thing is, like, a lot of the personal assistants were a lot more useful before they were wired into AI, because they were specifically wired up to do the things that we are likely to ask them to do. I had the exact same problem with when Google switched from the Google Assistant to Gemini for its voice assistant, because now it's things like, "Hi, could you?" Things I've been able to do for years, like, "Hey, remind me tomorrow to do this at this time." It would say, "I'm sorry, I'm just a large language model. I'm not allowed to do." Like, you could do that a year ago, and maybe you're supposed to be smarter now. So we might be seeing this is part of like the year-long, I think, grace period that we should give Apple Intelligence, while noting how terrible it is to rely upon it for like anything pretty much. But still, like, Apple's gonna have to figure out, like, okay, I think the problem was they tried to do this on device and it can't do this on device, and the on server model is not equipped for this yet.
He does point out that the Google AI overview gave the single worst answer, picking a South Dakota team to win the North Dakota High School Boys Championship.
And the average iPhone user asked, "How does this affect my photos?"
Oh, come on.
No one cares.
It all is back to photos for you, isn't it, Alex?
No, I'm just saying that it's like when people pay it, like, we've talked about this a lot in office hours, and when you talk to people who are not geeks about this, and you would get into all these details, they're just like, okay, well, but the camera, like, that, all people like we just wait for those presentations.
Yeah, but wait, because Apple's pushing Apple Intelligence.
I know that they're pushing it. I think it's a mistake for them to push it as hard as they are.
18.3 and 15.3 came out, and you are opted in now by default. You have to turn it off.
It increases their sample rate and allows them to figure things out. But I think Apple's biggest mistake is not so much making Apple Intelligence, just promoting it so heavily, because it's not what people are buying their phones for. Like, it's not what they're buying the hardware for. It's not what they're buying the iPads for. We all have a whole bunch of AI I have on a day-to-day basis. I have 3 or 4 AI windows open: Midjourney, ChatGPT, Sonnet, possibly other ones that are popping up and down. I'm opening up, and I'm doing that all on my Mac. Like, I just don't care whether Apple, like, I don't interact with Apple Intelligence, and again, I think that the average person doesn't care.
I would argue the one thing people were hoping with Apple Intelligence is that Siri would get better.
Sure.
You're right.
Yeah,
they didn't care about the rest of it.
But I don't care. Like
Apple would take the time where we would see because Apple was, as it's all been reported, late to the game, that there would be more care given. I also think it's too soon to say that people don't care because Apple is just now making it the default on option. So we have to see how this plays out.
I just don't see people leaving their iPhone because they can't, because they want to go to
leave?
Google.
Okay.
Who's one?
No, what I'm saying, but I'm just saying like it's like Apple has plenty of time. Like no one, I just don't think that it's so far from, and the thing, all I need Siri to do is play the song that I asked for and not pick the live version. Like that's the only thing I need them to fix is like, hey, how about not play the live version? Because that's not what I asked for.
Yeah, what I needed to do though is to get this stuff right. So you needed to play your music correctly. I needed to have the AI respond appropriately if I'm going to try using it.
I guess I have very low expectation of what it can do, so I don't try.
That's fair.
The big thing is always going to be, you're right, we're in a kind of a grace period for everybody right now, where it's not yet like the graphical user interface was. Like it took a few years before people started looking over to computers with graphical user interfaces and ask themselves, why isn't my computer as easy to use as that? Why can't I do this with my PC? We still have a couple of years, I think, before AI gets to that level, but Apple can't let themselves get into a position where, again, someone's contract is up, they're in the store for a new phone, they're not someone who's necessarily like tied allegiantly to any one platform, and they see a demo of a Samsung phone or a Pixel phone, and they see that group of AI features that makes them say, why doesn't my iPhone do that? And that's why Apple can't simply rest on the idea of, well, it's not a big deal. People, there have been polls that say that only 17% of even iPhone users think that Apple Intelligence is important. At some point, if they don't hit this ground running, they're going to be in the position where the iPhone is the phone that has, to use your metaphor, like it's the phone with a camera that's decent but can't do night shot, that can't do low light photography, that can't do this, can't do that. You don't want people to be saying, why doesn't my iPhone do this cool thing that I've seen my friends' phones do?
I think Apple needs to continue to work on it. I just think that when articles come out of like it's horrible and it's all falling apart and everything else, and it's like someone cares, like that person cares, and there's like 5% of the users that care, and so it's a little hyperbolic. Like sure, when ChatGPT came out at first, it was very rough, and it would say all kinds of crazy stuff that wasn't anywhere close to reality, and you need to get the feedback to make it better. And so I think Apple has to do what it's doing now. But I don't think I get quite as riled up as some of the articles that I see written about it. Like it's a travesty that it can't tell what the Super Bowls are. I don't care.
Well, I don't know if I use the word travesty, but it's bad if you have a very, very heavily hyped by Apple product. It's not, hey, sign up for this special beta list to get exclusive early access to this thing we're working on. Or even now with 18.3, here's a feature set that if you turn it on, it will start doing things. This is something where people are sort of being led into using a system that just doesn't work. I would be much more pleased with Apple's way of implementing this if they really almost made this like a huge toggle switch that simply said all Apple Intelligence features on or all Apple Intelligence features off, with the implication that if you turn this on, you'll have a really cool adventure. You're going to learn how to use this stuff. You'll also be helping us train Apple Intelligence to become better, but do not trust any facts that it gives you, and be prepared for some wobbly experiences. It's bad if, again, I use the same voice assistants I've been using for years, and suddenly, instead of saying, I don't know, which is, even with humans, one of the most powerful and important things that an intelligence could learn how to say, I don't know, but I will help you look that up. You don't want someone who says confidently, gee, I don't know. Well, the thing is, in Walpole, Massachusetts, the boys basketball team got 412 points in December of 2041. That's when you start to think that, wow, I paid $1,000 for this phone.
Something that people shouldn't do, we know they shouldn't, but that they will do if they rely on being able to search for a question. I can imagine someone like me who has dogs and who's holding 3 different items in their hand, and the dog's looking up lovingly, wishing that they could have a bite of this. And normally you could say, can my dog eat avocado? And it would return a search result. But for it to confidently say, absolutely, your dog can eat avocado, and it turns out that it's not good for the dog.
Well,
if you relied on it being right before, then that's I think that's it's the confidence that's at issue here. And that's why I'm happy that Apple, as Andy, you pointed out or suggested for the company, when they released this new update and completely disabled the ability to summarize, and I know we'll talk a little bit about it, probably news and entertainment notifications, they've specifically said if you go in to turn on any summary notifications at all, there will be errors. There are likely to be errors. Expect errors. And that's the thing, is just, I think it's our job to remind people that if they are going to use this, if they do care about it, if they are curious about it, just be mindful. Not necessarily that the sky is falling because Apple's getting it wrong. I just want them to get it right.
And I just think that we should do that with all of the internet. Like, like the thing is that with the Apple Intelligence, there's no single point of truth on the internet. I find myself constantly searching, especially in technical areas that I work, and getting just the craziest answers. And these are not AI answers. These are people who said that they were experts, who have web pages that people pay advertising for. Yeah. And I read it and I go, that person has no idea what they're talking about. So the problem with all of AI is it's basing its content on a whole bunch of people that kind of know what they're talking about, and a lot of people that don't know what they're talking about, and a lot of people that are just lying. And so the thing is that the whole internet is inaccurate. And I think that it's important. I think we have this thing like, well, I picked it up and it was wrong. Well, most of the internet's wrong too. Like, and so anytime I'm looking for something, I got to find it in a couple different places, and I got to see it from a couple different angles before I start to figure out whether what I'm looking at is real or not, because it's a constant problem.
This is why I like Google's overall approach, or their consistent approach for the past year or so, which has been, I will give you the answer. I will also tell you why I think that's the answer. It will name its sources.
I think the summaries work well. Yeah, I think the Google summaries work well. They're wrong a lot.
Oh no, absolutely. No, I think that there's still a piece of blanket advice that it's almost my obligation in 2025 to spread like Johnny Appleseed, which is that at the current status of artificial intelligence is that it is awesome at anything that does not require an absolute yes or no, right or wrong answer. So when you give us a task like, here's a 1,000-page PDF of records, could you tell me what sections I need to look at if I want to learn about this part of it? Or can you can you summarize section 8 of this, or any place that mentions Massachusetts Transit Authority? However, if you say that this is 1,000 pages of filings of contributions to campaigns, and you ask it, can you tell me if so and so how much money was donated within the state of Massachusetts? Don't trust that information. Anything that's either yes or no, right or wrong, don't trust that. But everyone should be starting to figure out how to use these not necessarily right or wrong answers as a way to improve their workflow. It's really had a big impact on how I do my job, that I don't let it do my homework for me. But now during those weeks when I literally do have 600 or 700 pages of PDFs to go through, it can at least triage stuff for me and say that I'm going to skim through this later, but AI is telling me that there's probably not the information I'm looking for in this document. And if there is, it's not telling me the answer. It's saying, here's where you look in this PDF for that answer. So
I leave the summaries on because they're comedic.
just for a chuckle.
I enjoy the comedy of it all.
Like Zippy the Pinhead is handling your notifications. All non-cicadas.
But I have to say, probably that's not the best for Apple's reputation, shall we say, in the AI space. They did make some changes to the AI team. I mean, whether Alex takes it seriously or not, Apple does. And they've moved Kim Vorath over. She is their fixer, who has been on many projects. She got the Vision Pro out the door. She's been at Apple for 36 years. She'll serve as top deputy, The Verge says, to AI boss John Giandrea. Actually, Bloomberg says that. So I mean, I guess you move the fixer in when you realize there's a problem.
And Apple historically has had problems when they launch stuff out, and then they put what they can do well, which is throw an incredible amount of money at the problem. And so, when Maps came out, it was a disaster, and now, it was one of those things I installed Google Maps immediately when Maps came out. I just kept stuck with Google Maps for years. And today I'm using Apple Maps. I open up Google Maps and I feel like I'm going into the past. Like Apple Maps is considerably better from I don't know about accuracy. I mean, I get to where I'm trying to get to, but I will say that visually and workflow wise, I feel like it's better than Google Maps at this point. And so in the same way, when Apple TV came out, I thought that all of their content, and I said it on the show, was a disaster. Like, I just thought it was all bad, and I was like, wow, you spent a lot of money on this, and now I think that consistently, percentage-wise, the number of swings that they make, they're making the best content of any streamer. But it took them a couple of years to get over that mess, And so I have a feeling that Apple Intelligence probably will follow the same pattern.
Yeah. Note also that when Apple Maps came out, which is probably an equivalent. I don't only use disaster, but equivalent bad black eye for Apple. Tim actually published a letter that said, "Yeah, we released this, or essentially we released this too early. It's not the way we want it to be, but we're going to keep working on it. It might be appropriate for a more humanist sort of dialogue between Apple and the users about Apple Intelligence. That we are not promoting this as full polished features yet. We are building this. It's going to take a while before it's where it's at. For people who can find usefulness in the features that work well, we're offering it there. For the features that don't work well, we're offering it for people who consider themselves explorers, who are willing to, in effect, help us develop Apple Intelligence by letting it look at all of these notifications and get smarter and smarter as it goes by. I really think that a letter like that, or at least an open dialogue, would be helpful to get people to understand their expectations and Apple's expectations in the future.
Apple did push out updates to macOS, iOS, probably tvOS this week. I updated everything, and you might want to, because there is, according to Apple, a 0-day bug that may have been actively exploited. Now, it says against users with phones running software older than 17.2. So it sounds like it was patched in later versions. The bug is in core media, as is often the case if you listen to Security Now. Software that renders other media is often vulnerable because you can send a malformed file and then cause a buffer overflow, which then allows you to do elevated privileges, and that's exactly what happens here. This is the first iOS bug of the year, so they managed to get it in right before the end of the month, which is great. I'm not sure if you need to do this if you are running a later version of iOS, but there are other, I'm sure, fixes as well. And the big change, of course, is that they're now adding reminders to Apple Calendar. So did you talk about that on iOS? Oh, you will next week, probably.
It's surprising how I didn't realize that people wanted that so badly. But when it came out, I saw so many people like, finally.
I pay for Fantastic, Hal, for that reason, almost entirely alone. They also added a few other cosmetic changes to Calendar. I think the big one is that they enabled Apple Intelligence by default on 18.3.
Yeah, and turned off notification summaries again for the time being.
So go in and turn them on for news.
For news and if you can.
Can you turn them on for news or
no? Now you cannot turn them back on.
And also when it uses Apple Intelligence summaries on a lock screen, like for other notifications, it's in italics to make sure to give you a visual disc. And also when you turn it on, it actually is more explicit, saying, "Yeah, we're still working on this, so wackiness might ensue."
Fine. Or it could be hilarity. Hilarity could ensue.
Would you like a chuckle? Turn this feature on.
The very first thing it told me is there are many people at your front door.
We're making our users happy. When you found out that your dog hadn't actually been kidnapped into a Russian rodeo, weren't you really, really happy to learn that he was actually safe and sleeping at home? You're welcome.
Goodness.
You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, if your iPhone has TikTok installed, hold tight, because TikTok, of course, is still not in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. And now being listed, if you go to eBay and search for iPhone and TikTok, There are quite a few iPhones. Now, they're not selling for this price if you limit it down to the ones that have sold. But there are some list. This is an $8,000 iPhone 16 Pro Max, original inbox, unlocked with TikTok and CapCut installed. Both, of course, ByteDance apps that have been removed from the App Store. Marvel Snap is back, but that was a kind of a gray area because they're just the publisher.
It was a distributor, right? So they switched to a different publisher.
Let me go down and show only sold items and just see. Yeah, well, here's $350, $275. Ooh, somebody did buy an unlocked iPhone 13 with TikTok for $1,200. A little over value, I would guess.
How do you leave the app on without logging? Like, do you log out?
Oh, that's a good question.
Does that, like, I was like, I guess you could log out of your app store and leave it as the only app left
on. Yeah, but then
I thought that if you sign in as a new person, I guess you could, but I couldn't figure out how. I have a bunch of old iPhones and I was like, I could make some extra money, but but I was like, I couldn't figure out like how I would completely extract myself from the phone, like, because I don't want to give somebody else my phone.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
With anything left on it. Usually you want to dump it completely to the ground before you hand it to somebody. So you're not doing that, which means you're kind of leaving yourself opened, I think.
Because that's tied to your user ID, your Apple account.
I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Don't do it.
Yeah, I don't think that's. I thought about it. And then I thought it was a bad idea. So, but I definitely considered the opportunity.
macOS 15.3 has now finally full Genmoji support.
The one feature I really adore.
Tim got my letter.
Is anybody using Gen? Are you guys? Anybody? Are you? Of course,
I think they're fun. They're silly. They're fun. And
so, give me an example of what you've used it. How you've used it.
Yeah. So I just the other day was having a conversation with my Clockwise co-host Dan Morin, and we were talking about something to do with the show. And I sent a message, and he sent a message right after, and we both said the same thing. And so immediately I was thinking of like a shared brain emoji. So I typed in shared brain, and this horrific but hilarious image was generated where it was two emojis side by side with this ugly pink brain above it. And then I've done things like I'm talking to somebody about my dogs, and so I did like a Chihuahua wearing a crown, for example. So it's just little kind of references to conversations that have me creating these Genmoji. And then sometimes it's easy.
So you have to. So you go to the plus sign. You say, I want to put a. Or no, how do you get a Genmoji in there? You go to the emojis?
You go into the emoji, and then at the top where it says describe an emoji, that's that search area. When you type it in, if it's something that exists already, it will serve it to you. If it's not, then it will let you generate. But you can also
then there's a button I see. It says create new emoji.
Exactly.
Okay. And now it's launched. Okay. I don't know where to go. All right. Well. There you go, Dustin. Thank you. Fortunately, we have Club Twit to do our Genmojis for us.
Indeed.
Is that as good as a shared brain you came up with?
Let me see if I can share my shared brain that's a little more horrific than that one is.
This one's cute. It's a little gray brain with a happy face on it, and it's the lobes are split left and right.
There's mine.
No, that's creepy. So that is two smiley face emojis with the brains on top looking like scrambled eggs. And then there's
committed murder, and they're flaunting it.
And anyone who's had a cup of coffee will understand this next one I'm sending.
Okay, let's see. Oh, no. Ew. I've had a cup of coffee and I feel great. Is that what that means?
That's so gross.
Or I'm using an inferior coffee maker, and
that could also be.
I love soft serve ice cream.
Yeah, what is it? Affogato.
Affogato. That's what you just made. A soft serve affogato. For those listening, you're just gonna have to use your imagination.
Yeah.
All right. That's one thing. Now we can do that. Notification summary revisions. We mentioned that. That also not just iOS, but also is extended to macOS 15.3. Calculator app. There was a bug in 15.3.
Talk about getting the facts wrong.
Yeah, basically you couldn't repeat a calculation that you had done before. So if you did 72 times 2, you hit enter, and then you wanted to do times 2, you before would be able to hit enter. That stopped working. So they just put that back in. It's not that exciting, honestly.
No. Okay. There you have it.
That's what's changed.
But given that there was a 0-day that they fixed, I think it's probably worth doing this. There's probably other security patches.
Absolutely.
They're not real forthright on that. 20 plus security updates, actually, according to Mac rumors. That's quite a few. One could allow an attacker with physical access to. Oh, this is we call this the Alex Lindsay. It's an attacker with physical access to an unlocked device can access the Photos app, even when an iPhone is locked.
Turns out that the current Photos app was a defense against people actually wanting to hack into it. They opened it up and like, ooh, wow.
There were several issues with AirPlay that could allow attackers to execute code or crash apps. That's not good.
5 different things.
2 kernel vulnerabilities could let malicious apps gain kernel privileges. Some
unexpected application termination or arbitrary code execution. Those are the 3 words that
you don't want to hear.
A brown trouser moment. Yes.
Yeah, and Apple did admit that the core media bug had been found in the wild. It had been exploited. So you want to apply those. You absolutely do. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Alex Lindsay, Andy Iannacco, and filling in for the Snell. It's wonderful to have Micah Sargent with us today. Thank you for being here, all of you and all of our Club Twit members and all of our listeners. Our show today brought to you by, and I mean this quite literally, CacheFly. For 20 years, CacheFly has been the leader in high-performance, ultra-reliable content delivery, serving over 5,000 companies in over 80 countries. We were struggling. Twit's been around for 20 years. April will be our 20th anniversary of the first Twit show. And even from that day, we were struggling with bandwidth, with getting shows to you. It turns out you can't just put them on a website. That's not going to work, especially when you have 30, 40,000, 100,000, 200,000 downloads, as it eventually became. So we tried BitTorrent. Some of the shows were served by AOL Radio. Do you remember those days? Wow. I think MacBreak Weekly was brought to you by AOL Radio in the early days. Eventually, Matt Levine, the founder of CacheFly, came to me and said, Leo, please, can we help? And they did, and they have ever since. They've been doing it for 20 years. We've been using them for almost 20 years. CacheFly is the only CDN, that's what we use them for, content delivery network, built for throughput, ultra-low latency video streaming, video to over 1 million concurrent users with less than a second latency, yeah. Lightning fast gaming delivers downloads faster with zero lag or glitches or outages. Mobile content optimization offers automatic and simple image optimization, so your site loads faster on any device, any size screen. The thing that made a difference to us, we didn't really, I'd never used a CDN. We didn't even know how much. We had no idea in the beginning who was going to download the show, how many people were. It was a kind of a shock, and we just didn't want to pay for more bandwidth than we were going to need. So they worked with us. And that's what they'll work with you. Flexible, month-to-month billing for as long as you need it. Once you know, then you get discounts for fixed terms. The point is, we designed our own contract when we switched to CacheFly. You can too. They have some new stuff that's pretty exciting. They're always adding new features. They're really a leader in innovation in this space. Manage object storage. CacheFly is a new object storage solution designed to increase speed and reliability to industry-leading levels. How? The hardware is entirely based on NVMe. It'll be better suited to users with a large number of small objects and, of course, still completely S3 compatible. It'll easily integrate into your CacheFly MOS, S3, or other tool set you've designed. There are no egress or ingress costs. That's nice, just a flat volume fee. See what I mean? CacheFly makes it easy. They also opened a new point of presence in Vienna, Austria. So if you're a Waltz king, you'll see significant improvements in latency and average transfer speed. Actually, all of our Central European listeners will see that benefit immediately. That's what's nice about having a CDN. They've got points of presence all over the world. If you are a reseller, some new reseller features in the portal. You can be classified as a reseller, have multiple full accounts under your reseller account, but each of them can operate independently, but billing remains centralized. They're very responsive. I really like that. CacheFly. They deliver rich media content up to 158% faster than other major CDNs. You can shield your site content in their cloud. We've done that for some years now, which means we have a 100% cache hit ratio, no cache misses. And that means, no delays getting our content to you, the listeners. And with CacheFly's elite managed packages, you're going to get the VIP treatment. You'll get a dedicated account manager who will be with you from day one, ensuring smooth implementation and reliable 24/7 support when you need it. I love CacheFly. We are so grateful. I just did Matt Levine's podcast. It'll come out sometime in the next couple of weeks. I'll let you know when it does. Learn how you can get your first month free. CacheFly.com/twit. You've heard me say it for years. After I stopped saying brought to you by AOL Radio, I started saying bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by CacheFly at CacheFly.com/twit. Thank you, CacheFly. We really appreciate it. Speaking of radio, it's been interesting. Spotify's a little butthurt, shall we say, by a company called Duetti.
So defensive.
They're very defensive, and they're kind of defensive in not a good way. Duetti published a report analyzing the state of artist payouts from music streaming services. This is from Apple World Today. So Spotify, this is for 2024 payouts per 1,000 streams, is the lowest, $3 per 1,000. Then YouTube, $4.80. Then Apple Music, more than twice as much as Spotify, $6.20. Amazon is the big winner, though, $8.80, almost 3 times as much as Spotify. Now, Spotify said, well, in fact, Spotify just today released, how much they've paid artists. Oh, we're looking at the billions we've paid artists. But what they don't say is how much per stream or how much. They just say total. We've paid billions.
And I think that their argument is that, and I don't usually come to the defense of Spotify very often, but I will say that the math I think is important to understand is that Amazon has a membership that a lot of people are kind of automatically paying.
Yeah,
I think, and no one uses it. I mean, I don't know anybody that uses Amazon Music.
I use it.
Okay, you use it. So there we go.
Well, I also use Apple Music and YouTube Music. Yeah. The only one I don't use is Spotify.
But how often do you use? I
used it yesterday because they have a lossless. They have a lossless version of all their music, which is really nice.
Okay, there you go. So
and they have some very nice playlists, and I don't trust Spotify's playlists because, as we know, Spotify lies or misrepresents what's on those playlists. If you ask for Bossa Nova dinner time, more than 3/4 of the artists will be phony artists, will be AI generated or commissioned artists, not real artists. So I think Spotify is not the best. I'm going to let you defend them.
No, I'm just defending the math.
But I'm not that crazy about them.
I greatly dislike Spotify.
Okay.
I think that they've, so like, I just want to make sure it was clear. I'm not a Spotify fan at all. I think that they've destroyed the podcasting market.
Yeah, that's another reason to hate them.
Yeah. And I don't think that they're good for artists. But I think that what you're looking at when you look at that number is what percentage of subscribers are using an ad-supported system versus a subscription-supported system. And as the subscriptions increase, it means that there's less people downloading, but everyone's always paying. And so I think that's why Spotify's at the bottom. YouTube's a little bit higher. And
yeah, Spotify says nobody calculates payment per stream, which I find hard to believe.
I think everybody calculates payment per stream. Yeah. Everybody thinks that way. They may not think that way, but every artist does.
In fact, they released a press release that says, no, we paid $10 billion to artists last year.
But again,
that's only because they're the biggest, right?
Well, and to get back to what you're saying is when they're commissioning artists and when they're commissioning AI driven audio, it definitely calls into question
what
the artists are getting. It's watering that down, and so and I think that Apple is getting good at that kind of value add to media. I think it's taking them a long time. I think Apple TV, again, as I said, what's interesting is with Netflix increase in cost, for the cost of Netflix, for one subscription of Netflix, you could have Apple Music, Apple Games, Apple Plus, Apple TV Plus, so Apple is actually, and when you watch those, you can see the money literally pouring out of the front of your screen from a production value perspective. I mean, it just looks so good. And so the thing is that they and the Apple Music is clearly, I don't know. I mean, I haven't listened to Amazon Music, but it's definitely better than Spotify. Like my daughter is like, she listens to Spotify for the recommendations, but she said, I listen to everything else in Apple Music because it sounds better.
Spotify, and this is their blog post titled "For the Record." They say we help artists because we grow the pie, and it is true. They are by far the largest, with 500 million paying listeners. Oh no, I'm sorry. It says today there are more than 500 million paying listeners across all music streaming systems. Oh. A world with 1 billion paying listeners is a realistic goal we should collectively set. Well, yeah, I mean, if you were an artist, you might say, well, I kind of wish they'd buy the album. That might be a better goal from an artist's point of view. They basically say, look, you can't base it on the cost per stream. Because we've grown the audience base, artists make more money from us, even if it might be, if you calculate it by stream, it might
I
be
don't
lower.
know. I mean, I think artists most artists are not making more money with Spotify than they used to make with CDs.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I think when they compare it, I'm like,
well, but we are in a different world, right?
Yeah,
Nobody's those days are gone. I mean, as much as we might like them, Spotify. This is interesting, and I kind of like this, and this is kind of what the internet has promised: growing careers beyond the superstars. I've said for a long time, an equitable music system wouldn't have a half dozen people making billions and then hundreds of thousands making nothing. It would be more. I mean, they're wonderful musicians all over the place. So they say we estimate in 2014, at least 10,000 artists generated $10,000 a year on Spotify. Today, well over 10,000 artists generate over $100,000, a living wage, in other words, on Spotify. And I think that's fair.
I don't know any artist other than the very top ones that make 100,000. But maybe I've never.
Well, they say 10,000.
Most of the artists that are doing well are leveraging that into Patreon or other tools to generate revenue.
They're saying on Spotify per year from Spotify alone.
There you go.
So that's exactly what you would hope with the internet, was 100%. A democratization of it and a chance for more artists to make a living as opposed to making a killing.
I mean, I think that you're seeing that in the video market in the sense that there are many YouTubers that are making a solid living without, they're not making millions. They're just making enough to do what they love to do at a regular, at a rate that they can afford wherever they live. And I think that is that terrifies Hollywood. that people could just do it out of their house, and I think that the cost of production for a lot of this stuff has gone down. But again, I think with Spotify, it's really hit and miss. I just don't know a lot of artists that feel like they could live on what they make on Spotify. They usually look at it as a loss leader for their concerts. Live is what live and merch are what generally pay the bills for most music artists at this point.
You go down in the subway in New York City and there's some guy playing the fiddle like a genius or a guitar like a genius. And you think,
it's brutal.
There are so many talented musicians who aren't able to make a living. In the old days, it was much worse. You had to get a label, and then the label would take the cost of your studio time out of your revenue.
The dinners that they took you out to. The label would take the band out to dinner. That's coming out of the band.
To be fair, that was my deal with iHeartRadio also for years, was they would every time they took me out to dinner, I said, I'm paying for this, right? But that's fine. That's, they make these deals, right? And if you're an artist and the only path to success is going through that, barrier, you're going to do it. Thank goodness that's not the only path anymore. It's easier now. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. We're glad you're here. Alex Lindsay, Andy Ihnatko, Jason Snell taking the week off, Micah Sargent here. I don't want to raise alarms unnecessarily, but it's kind of the way it's been for the last week. Apparently, the new president is threatening to tariff Taiwanese chip makers 100%.
Yeah.
Now, he hasn't done it yet. He hasn't done it. And that's the thing, is it would be, who is it? TSMC. Yeah. He said, they took all our jobs offshore and we're going to charge them 100%. But of course, if you doubled the cost of a chip from TSMC via tariffs, it's going to cost us a lot more.
Yeah.
It's
way down.
If you read the statement, it's It's disheartening because it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. He was actually just basically making fun of and disparaging the Biden administration's CHIPS Act, which is say, well, how do we get more chip manufacturing back in the United States? And the answer is, well, we incentivize with money. We basically say, here, we'll help you make factories. We need to establish and build up. Trump's statements seem to be, he's basically saying that, oh, well, we want to move those jobs back to the United States, as if, no, those jobs don't exist. We don't have the ability to make chips in the United States. There's a reason why we went overseas for that, because they can actually build that capacity. Tariffs are not going to magically put 2 nanometer process plants in the United States. So it's disheartening to hear that kind of policy statement.
You were expecting rationality and thought process out of the White House that we have currently.
I've made it a policy on this show to not to stick to the facts and stick to whatever and not make editorial comments.
I can't imagine this going through.
Because if I start, where do I stop?
Well, it may just be a threat, right?
It's gotta be a threat. It's just garbledygook. Like, this is like,
well, it's kind of like Indonesia saying, "Hey, give us $1 billion if you want to sell iPhones here." It's a holdup. It's a stick up.
There's got to be something. Tim Apple is going to, go over there and sing and pull out his harp and sing a song to Trump.
Trump said they left us and went to Taiwan, which is about 90% of the chip business, and we want them to come back. We don't want to give them billions of dollars like this ridiculous program Biden has. He's talking about the CHIPS Act. They already have billions. They have nothing but money. They need an incentive. And it will be, they will not want to pay a tax. They will want to build a factory with their own money that will come in because it's good for them. Now, this article did not say 100% tariff, but that is a number that has been bandied about. Yeah. It would certainly, if any tariff would, of course.
Well, the question is whether it's a tariff of direct input or like how does the tariff apply? Like, is it applied?
Well, there are lots of questions, right? I mean,
if those chips go to China and then they get assembled in China and then come here, is it the 100? Do the TM?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Is it the China tariff or the TSMC tariff? We don't know what that means.
In its previous administration's tariff proposal, there's an assessment of percentage of whatever that represents a tariffable content. So it's not as though iPhones will be 100% more expensive. There will be a determination, possibly after lots of dinners with Tim in Mar-a-Lago, that hopefully Apple can live with. But it's really is topsy-turvy. Another thing that got me super concerned was, he participated in the Davos conference, the World Economic Forum conference, via webcam, and he was saying almost explicitly that and you Europeans and you're passing laws that put billions of dollars of fines and penalties on the United States, and you can't do that. We're not going to allow you to penalize United States companies. That's unfair. And essentially, I don't have the statement in front of me, but essentially saying that we're not going to allow you to pass laws to protect your citizens if it in any way impacts American businesses. And given America's history with
tariff
diplomacy of saying, "Hi, we really wish that we love the fact that you want to pass all of these labor protection laws for your country, but that's going to affect like our American businesses. So you can either not pass those laws, or we can inflict a regime change on you." Already they're talking about regime change in Greenland, for heaven's sake. It's like this is why I get concerned about not only the larger picture, but also in terms of Apple. It's like we've had good discussions about the pros and cons of Tim developing such a close relationship with the Trump administration, and how necessary it is for the CEO of a large company to have as good a relationship and a working relationship with the governments that they operate in. However, at some point, we're going to have to ask ourselves: are we okay with Tim saying, "Hi, we're a $3 trillion company. We would like to not." I know we keep saying that we have to observe all the laws that are enabled in the countries that we participate in. It would be great though if we could basically have our government with either diplomatic pressure, economic pressure, or military pressure, tell this country that you're not entitled to pass any law that would affect us in any way. That's a much bigger mud stain on Tim's face than Apple Intelligence messing up a notification.
Well, my guess, it's all transactional. So my guess is,
I don't think I think you have to pay a lot of attention to Trump, because I don't think he's not worried about fairness or rightness or anything else. Yeah. He's just looking at the next deal, and every deal is its own transaction. And he's going to say, I have leverage in this deal, which is that I'm the United States, and I will use that leverage.
Well, look what he did in Colombia.
Mildly. Colombia. I mean, they would have been in a coup in like 2 or 3 weeks if he had if they escalate that. I don't know. Right. I think they kind of backed down. They backed down, and then they said, "Oh, we're going to tariff the United States goods by 25%." And
well, as is always the case, and this is not the province of this show, but as is always the case, there are consequences down the road. You're pushing them to China, right. and so does TSMC? What is TSMC's reaction? I mean, they are already building a plant in Arizona using CHIPS Act money, by the way, which is now frozen. Illegally frozen and impounded by the president. So, and I think it's kind of chaotic time right now.
I think what he's probably looking for is, and we don't know, it's hard to tell with him. Yeah. But I think that there may be I'm going to say this big thing, and then TSMC is going to announce a new factory in Detroit, and he's going to say, "Look what I did.
Good, we got it.
I got what I needed. I didn't have to do the thing." So I think that he's now looking for, by saying this big thing, I think he's going to, we should, the other foot to drop will be in the next, within the next 3 months, there'll be an announcement, and TSMC and Apple, I'm sure, can say, you know what, we'll spend $100 million in, Poughkeepsie, New York, or in Denver, Colorado, or whatever. And
just like
declares,
just like the Foxconn plant in Wisconsin, it doesn't really matter if that plant ever gets built.
Or is efficient. Like, some of these might get built, but as long as people see, people are not good at math. So as long as they see something happening and a politician
they have a short
can point
attention
to it,
span, and the news cycle is short.
It's just got to be big enough that when you walk through it looks big on the camera. Right. That's the
they didn't even bother in Wisconsin. Well, they broke ground. They built a dome, and then they walked away from it. And by the way, the only people holding the bag, of course, is the state and the local governments that did all this funding for this and got a dome. No jobs, just a dome. I'm sure it's going to be something like this. And this is where, you're lucky you've got Tim Cook, who the last time the president, it was President Trump in his last administration, threatened this. Tim went to him and said, look, all you're going to do is help a Korean company sell phones in the United States. It's going to kill us. And he backed down. He changed it. And I imagine there'll be similar negotiations.
There's a lot of, it's kind of scary. I don't know. It's scary or reassuring to know how many bad ideas get modified later on after people who know what they're talking about get the ear of the person who said that thing. And we've had so many stories about Steve Jobs basically deciding that this is no good. We're never going to do this for the iPhone. And then because he's surrounded himself with smart people who knew that they could talk to Steve, basically here's why this is actually a good idea. And so he'll reverse himself. The difficulty is when you have the person who was walking through the building saying those sprinkler heads in the ceiling, they're ugly, take them all out. You need to have another layer of people who say, here's why those sprinkler heads are super, super important and why we can make them look better, but we can't remove them. If the things that this is still very, very early weeks, of course, but part of what we've been hearing is removal of everybody who knows why those sprinkler heads are there and why they're important and what laws you'll be breaking and what disasters you'll be calling into being by removing them, and being replaced by people who don't know why the sprinkler heads are important. They just know that their boss said we need to get rid of them and they want to look for the good for the boss. Diplomacy is all about goodwill as a commodity. And if at some point you need to have a conversation with that other country in which they feel as though they're being heard, they feel as though they're getting something out of the deal. If the United States is just a position of we are trying to shepherd in the new golden age of America and you are interfering with our security and our progress and our prosperity and we can't have that, that's going to work just like any bully can eat very well off the lunches of the other people in the playground for the first few weeks. By week number 4, when they realize that, yeah, we don't want to live the rest of our lives this way, they'll realize that a lot of little kids can beat the hell out of one big kid very easily.
If you're wondering what some of those now impounded grants, federal grants fund, they funded, among other things, the Air Force Office of Scientific Research, which came up with slap and flop, which is not what I'm doing to my focaccia later today, but in fact, speculative attacks on the Apple processors. This has been Intel's problem, and AMD and ARM as well. Speculative execution, predicting what's going to happen, which speeds up a processor considerably, also opens up some holes for exploit. It's happened to Intel, AMD, and ARM, and it's happening on the sadly on the Apple chips. Apple CPUs, starting with the M2, are equipped with a load address predictor, which improves performance by guessing the next memory address the CPU will retrieve data from, based on prior memory access patterns. But if it guesses wrong, and this is the problem, it causes the CPU to perform arbitrary computations on out-of-bounds data, which should never have been accessed to begin with under speculative execution. And so they've found, and this is from the U.S. Air Force, which I think is fascinating.
That's cool.
They've even come up with a cute little logo. The slap logo has a slapping hand on a chip. The flop logo has flip-flops on a chip. In both cases, these are the problem with these, and I'm sure Steve will cover them on security now. We'll have to listen. Is that often these are difficult to implement without access to the machine and so forth. But still, it's a proof of concept. Predictors.fail is the website, and the research is from Georgia Tech School of Cybersecurity and Privacy, supported by the Air Force Office of Scientific Research, and I hope they spent that money before it got cut off. All right, enough politics for the for the next 5 minutes. Let's talk about what Alex wants to talk about. The new iPhone SE.
The new iPhone SE. Okay.
SE4. It's been shown off by a leaker. No sign of a dynamic island. And there is a single camera. Now, I don't know if you trust Majin Buu, the leaker here. He shared a short video over the weekend that shows the...
Sorry, that is almost certainly a reference to the anime Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, you recognize Majin Buu?
Yeah, I do.
Oh.
And in fact, now I know for sure because the avatar is of Majin Buu.
Well, it's good we have somebody under 50 here. Because,
so, Micah, you're saying a known celebrity who has a reputation on the line.
Who is a jolly evil character has done the leak.
Here's the video. Look, they're in manufacture by now. Let me turn this on.
Turn down Majin's music, please.
Majin Buu. And this looks like it's China, and it's probably is something that was, exfiltrated from one of the factories as they're making it, right? I mean, that's not
we are getting
too far-fetched.
Rumors have it appearing as early as next month, which probably is not going to happen, but in the next couple of months. So we're definitely in a window where, as we keep saying, as you get closer to a ship date, you start having to let in more and more people into what this is and what it looks like and what it does. And so leaks become a lot more possible. So I don't necessarily know if I 100% believe it, because I don't have to, because it's going to be a couple of months. We'll find out in any event. But yeah, it lines up with a lot of the stories we've been hearing from multiple leakers. The most interesting thing about the new SE would be that it runs Apple Intelligence. So having a really cheap phone that is still on board with Apple Intelligence, meaning future-proof for the next 5 or 6 years, that's a pretty significant statement from Apple about how much they're investing the future of the platform in Apple Intelligence.
The iPhone SE3 came out almost exactly 3 years ago, March 2022. So this spring 2025 seems like a reasonable time. Is there? I think there's a good market for the SEs, right?
100%, especially worldwide, because remember that Apple needs to keep selling iPhones, and they need to find the people who are not buying iPhones right now, convince them not to buy Android phones. And one of the reasons why they're buying Android phones worldwide is because not only are they localized, but also because they're a lot less expensive. They're not all like luxury aspirational items. So just the ability to put an iPhone SE in someone's hands at half the cost of a traditional iPhone, that will help them a lot in India, for instance.
I am going to wait for the new HomePod hub.
Yeah.
There are rumors about new HomePod minis coming out soon, but Mark Gurman did say over the weekend a new HomePod-like smart home hub with a 7-inch screen remains on track to launch this year. This is obviously a mock-up, but I would like, I guess some of this depends on Siri getting a little smarter, but I would love to. I like the big HomePods; they sound great. I have 4 of them, I think, in the house. I have a lot of the minis because I thought, well, I want to be able to command Siri from every room. But I think this would be more sensible. A18 chip, according to Guoming Chi, 6 to 7-inch display. There would be Apple Intelligence. Quo says it would enter mass production in the second half of the year. And that smart home capabilities would be a core aspect of the device. Of course, there was a rumor last week, I think, from Gurman that the Wi-Fi capability in this chip, or in the new Apple networking chip, might mean these also are Wi-Fi base stations.
I think the big thing here is that, well, one, it will likely provide all of the necessary background components. If people are confused about whether their device is a thread border router and whether it can serve as a home hub and this and that and the other, this can be that consistent device that does all of those things, and that there's no question about it remaining in the home and kind of always being accessible as such. With this purpose-built device that's supposed to run HomeOS, I think it's going to be really important. More so, I feel that any device that makes it easier in a I should say multi-person home, for people who are not incredibly smart home minded to be able to access and control different devices without having to do the weird thing of shouting out loud or fiddling around with some app and not knowing exactly what they're doing is always a good thing. And so I look forward to this as a potential opportunity for more people to get into some of the smart home stuff and not feel sort of put off by, okay, I just want the light to turn on. Why do I have to talk out loud to make the light turn on? That kind of thing. And ultimately, seeing Apple focus directly on what in theory will be called HomeOS, very exciting as a person who's paid attention to the smart home for a long time.
This is your bailiwick home automation and so forth.
We're pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
And I should also note really quick before Andy pops in, I have been working a lot with different Matter devices recently and seeing how well that is actually working and how there are many, many more devices that can now work with my Apple Home that used to not be able to has been very impressive. So I really think this does start to open things up a lot more in a good way and make it so that people aren't kind of, a little shy about, should I make this purchase because I don't know if this device is going to work with the smart home that I have.
Do you run Homebridge? Do you use Homebridge?
I do. I have Homebridge for a couple of devices that don't have Matter opportunities. So, for example, my my Elgato lights that I use here, those are accessible via Homebridge so that I can control those. And there's one more device that I am running. The house that I'm in now came with a Nest thermostat, and Nest does not by default work with Home. So Homebridge is what makes it possible for me to control the thermostat.
Nest thermostats as well.
Yeah.
I just have a folder on my phone with 25 apps controlling all of the different devices.
We know how to do it. We've been doing it. But if you have someone who's not super keen on all of that stuff, it is nice to say you've got one place you need to go. You can make it all work there.
It would be nice someday.
Yeah. Andy, I think I interrupted you though.
No, I was just going to ask you, did you see the Verge interview with Vivek Sidha?
Of course I did, yes.
I thought that was really interesting, what he had to say about threads and what it amounts to for the future of iPhone.
Absolutely. So a couple of things there. One, shout out to Jennifer Pattison Toohey, my regular co-host on Tech News Weekly, who is The Verge's like supreme smart home writer and is incredible at the stuff she does. So the CSA spoke to Nilay Patel, but also to Jennifer Pattison Toohey, as we call her, JPT, directly in an interview. And some of the conversations surrounded how and why the iPhone has a built-in thread radio. And there was some early, kind of, what's the point of that? Why do we have another device? And the big thing there is that if your Wi-Fi network is down in your home for whatever reason, and you've got your smart lock and you're trying to get into your house, having that phone that has that thread router in there, being able to radio to communicate directly with that device is really nice. And speaking as someone who, this device that I have right here, it's from Waymo. And for when I first bought it, it only
Waymo, not Waymo. Waymo's the self-driving cars.
Yes, Waymo, Belkin Waymo.
Okay.
It used to only work with Bluetooth, and later enabled the thread router or the thread radio. And it is wild, the difference that makes. Thread is an incredible technology because it's one of the first that says, instead of the case where adding more devices usually means there's much more crowded network and the communication kind of drops. No, the more you have, the better, because the more connection points there are and the more mesh you have. And so this thing is super fast in controlling my different devices all at once.
Is it a remote? What is it?
Yeah, it's a little remote. So
it's a remote control. Okay.
I have it set up to control my lights. I literally just hit the button and all of my lights just went off. Nice. I hit the button again. Already the lights are all on.
My house is sprinkled with hubs and remotes. I mean, everywhere there's a plug, there's something plugged into it that's blinking red or blue, depending on whether it can see the curtains and stuff. It's just a mess. It's such a mess. So, we'll refer people to JPT's piece in The Verge. Matter will be better. She in 2025 say the people who make it, and she interviewed 3, not just 1. She interviewed somebody from the CSA. You mentioned Vivid Sita, who's president of the Thread Group and director of software engineering at Apple, and Kevin Robinson. It's nice that Apple's director is president of the Thread Group. That's good.
Yeah.
And Kevin Robinson, who's the CEO of the Wi-Fi Alliance.
CSA is a little bit like the Emoji Group in that it's a trade group. It's made up of the people who are making the technologies that are, affected, which is good.
Nice. Yeah. Tobin Richardson, CEO of the Connectivity Standards Alliance. But you can see in this very interview, it's a little bit of it. I mean, you got to have 3 people, 3 different, protocols. It's all, I mean, this is the mess we're in. You can't even figure out what's going on in this space unless you have 3 people in the room to interview. So I don't have high hopes, I'll be honest, but I have hopes.
It's good you have hopes, and I understand why you wouldn't. I push back a little bit on, I think that what needs, for most people, there's no reason to get into the weeds in that way. You don't need to necessarily know what the 3 people are doing and what each group is bringing to the table, because that's part of it. Matter is using Thread as a means of device connection and communication, but Matter is the language that they all speak. And so it's just getting the perspective of these 3. It's not 3 different protocols that all are, trying to connect devices in different ways. It's instead the, I can't think of what Transformers, the Transformers joining together to make the Ultra Mega Robot, whatever.
Ultron.
Ultron. Part of it is Matter. That's the arm.
First Dragon Ball Z. Now I have to know Voltron. I swear. I swear. And of course, JPT appears every month on Tech News Weekly with Micah, and as often as we can get her on any of our shows because she's fantastic. She maintains a list of every smart home device that works with Matter from Apple, Amazon, Google, and Samsung at The Verge. So if you want to see if your device works with Matter, you can check it out here.
Yeah.
Well, all Apple stuff will work with Matter, right? That's their commitment.
Essentially, yes. And in fact, it's almost the reverse is the more important thing. If it's Matter certified, Apple recently said if the device goes through Matter certification, it automatically goes through the Works with Apple Home certification. And so, yes, that's how it's supposed to work. And in fact, I can confirm. Recently, we purchased a little light that goes in our living room from Govee, and Govee does not have a direct integration with HomeKit, but I was able to set it up via Matter, and it works just fine, works in the Home app just like everything else, and is instant just like everything else. So it's been very robust so far, and that's only continuing to improve, where before we've seen some kind of lagging behind from different companies. They really are getting their act together this year. But I understand the skepticism that remains, and I think it is on these companies to prove that there's not, that same fear of everything breaking apart into different protocols.
Yeah. I do have, this is the Home Assistant green server with the Home Assistant Connect ZBT dongle.
Is that what, Zigbee Bluetooth? What is that?
Yeah, and so it connects to, this is in theory a Matter compliant thing. It's plugged into my network, and then you run the Home Assistant software, and it's supposed to discover everything. And and I pay for Nabu Casa. I subscribe to Nabu Casa, which
bless you.
Nabu Casa, which Richard. So it's funny because Richard Campbell is a big
like automation
guy, and he's recommended the HA Green and using HA and so forth.
That's for the big nerds, which is great.
Well,
it's.
You're
more
looking
involved. At one. Yeah, exactly. And I love Home Assistant because it is just so incredibly granularly amazing. You could say, if I turn the volume up by 1 on my Sonos speaker, then unlock the front door and make my HomePods scream this sound. You know what I mean? Like, it's so wild.
If Sonos only worked with that would be wonderful.
Right.
Don't get me started.
Don't
get me started. All right. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Andy Ihnatko. Micah, so good to have you. We don't normally get into these things, so I'm so glad you could be here for that.
Good to chat.
And Mr. Alex Lindsay. I think all of us have a certain degree of home automation in our lives.
I have a dream of it. I have to admit that
I have a dream.
After 15 years of buying random stuff and putting it in,
much like you.
I'm just waiting for the next Apple device to come out that isn't a HomeKit package. I'm not really buying anybody else's products anymore.
Yeah,
like I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the camera. I'm waiting for the thing. I'm going to wait for the lock. I'm going to wait for the, I'm just like, I'm done. Like, and
my Akara lock in theory will work. It will be updated soon to work, or maybe I have to get the new one with, for instance, the iPhone car key thing, which works with my car is great. And if my lock would work the same way, so the door opened up when I came close and all of that stuff. So I feel like we're just, it's tantalizingly close.
I just feel like life's too short. Like I have so many other things to work on, and I'm just going to wait until I can just pick it up and it'll just do the thing.
Yeah, well, there's just so many problems. I'm close to the second time in the history of home automation in my house that I'm close to, okay, I'm going to have to get rid of everything and start all over again because I have such a mishmash of things that sometimes, the problem is when you get used to just getting into the door and you bark that command, and then the first time it doesn't work, and you're like, either my Wi-Fi is down, or I'm in for 4 days of hurt trying to figure out where the break in the system is.
And the hard part is like, to your point, like I got an Eve, just a outlet, like three plugs, and it worked for 4 months or whatever. And I walked in, I could just turn it on, and then one day it didn't work anymore. Yeah, and then like
an update. Then
I don't even know what I updated. Like it just stopped reacting. And then I said, and I looked at the instructions. It's like, if you want it to work again, you got to do this thing. You got to reset it. You got to stand on one foot, wink with your left eye, and then it'll come back on again. It'll be just fine. And you're just like, oh. Like it just
happens all the time with all of these. Yeah. And if you've got, like I do, 95 different smart devices in the house, there's only so much you can wink with your left eye before you just go.
And before we leave the topic, let's mention just how terrible most of these smart locks actually are. Like I have a lockpick kit, like a $15 lockpick kit that I just use to test, like when I get a lock in, or one that I just paid like $200 and something for. A simple wave pick that doesn't require any. You could learn how to use it in less than 10 seconds. I'm not even lying about that. Okay. And okay, so well, this again, it's telling me about how secure it is. That no, you can't trick it with another phone. No, you can't trick it with a magnet. No, you can't just pull the battery. It's like, okay, but will this $10 piece of metal simply pushed in and out for 5 seconds, will that unlock it? Hey, yes, it does. Okay, so this is now garbage. Or in the case of the lock that I bought, since I couldn't get a refund, I had to take it to an actual locksmith and pay him like $200, $120, $130 to say I would like this to be resistant against any idiot who watched a YouTube video. It's like I know that it's a fool's errand to try to like make any door like impossible to get through, because one well placed.
It's just a serving suggestion,
and you'll
it's
have
just
windows
like,
as well.
Don't come in here. I don't want you to come in here.
I mean, historically, I don't worry about the professional thieves because I know they're going to win anyway. I worry about like the knuckleheads who are like, hey, wow, look, I just read this thing on the. Hey, I'm just going to go start see what kind of doors I can open. Hey, look, I can open this. No one's home. Those are the people that will like again. Turn on all the faucets and then leave, and then like, okay, thank you. Aren't you adorable?
Yeah.
Poop on the carpet and get the hell out. Anyway, you are watching MacBreak Weekly. We're very glad you're here. But I want to ask our listeners for a little help. There's just a few days left for our annual survey. I mean, literally just 2 days left, I think, for our annual survey. And we would really love to know more about you, not individually, but as a group. The survey is the one thing we don't know about you. We can't, we're a podcast. All we got is RSS feeds. But once a year, we do put out this survey, hoping to get at least a representative sample of you, so we get a better idea of who's listening, what kinds of shows you like, what you wouldn't want to hear, and also, I'll be honest, we use it with advertisers. They're very anxious to know all about you. We don't tell them anything about you. But it's nice if we can say, 53% of our audience is IT decision makers or whatever. So that's what we use it for. Your privacy is guaranteed. We don't want to spy on you. We don't need to spy on you. We certainly don't sell this information on. If you would like to help us out, though, it is a way where you can really help us on the air. Just go to twit.tv/survey. Shouldn't take more about 10 minutes. It's pretty quick. It's just a online survey. Check. And I do appreciate it for all of you who've already done it, and for those of you about to do it, thank you. twit.tv/survey. Apple earnings are coming. Maybe that's what Jason Snell's doing. He's buying ink for his 6-color graphs. The earnings will be Thursday after market close. Analysts are downgrading the Apple stock, interestingly, although Apple has the one company that kind of survived the AI apocalypse after the Chinese AI DeepSeek R1 scared the crap out of Silicon Valley.
Seriously.
Apple actually went up a little bit.
Turns out being behind has its benefits.
Yeah.
Well, actually, yeah. I mean, specifically, like I guess the investors didn't completely lose their minds, because they're like, okay, well, if this means that if this idea is going to clobber companies like Google and OpenAI, Microsoft, everyone else, they're betting their futures on being able to charge a fortune for artificial intelligence, but Apple, who is a company that's going to be buying artificial intelligence services from other services, the idea of a system that can run on cheaper hardware that doesn't cost that much money to create, that's going to benefit Apple. But yeah, God, $600 billion in one day. That's like
amazing.
That's someone decided, you know what? I've been working way too. I'm going to take 90 minutes off and just, get an aromatherapy, get a massage, get a deep pore cleanse, and then when they get back to their car, they find out that there are 100 notifications, and they're all, our valuation has been pretty much wiped out.
Just remember, Andy, when times like these, just remember the 1860s English economist William Stanley Jevons. Okay, just keep Jevons' paradox in mind, because it turns out the more you use AI, the more efficient it becomes, the more you use it, and the more need there is for it. He observed it with coal, He said that the increased efficiency in coal use led to increased consumption of coal. And our own power company in California has been invoking Jevons paradox, saying, you guys are conserving, so we have to charge you more, which is incredibly annoying as our utility bills skyrocket. A number of people said, don't panic. This is good news because the cheaper it is to make AI,
of course, it's the people who are panicking
people are going to use it.
Are the people who, for the last year and a half,
who created
years,
a bubble. Yes.
If you just said if you just said AI, and then they say here's $1 million, like AI,
here, have this money.
We're gonna make pancakes with AI, and they're like, here's $1 million. And so the thing is, they put all this money into the assumption that everything's going to be hard, and then it got easy. So all the money that's already like they're talking about, like if this turns out, no one knows. This is so brand new. No one knows if it's real. It definitely calls home. So until someone goes through the open source and removes all we're going to store everything on Chinese servers. It's storing everything on Chinese servers. And so there's a bunch of things about it that are problematic. But if it turns out that it opens up a new level of this, there's a lot of people that already committed money. And some of this is potentially an existential, extinction event for many VC firms, because they put everything into AI thinking that, well, one of these is going to work, and what if none of them work? Like, what if all of them are suddenly, competing with 1,000 things? So it's a really interesting.
It's funny because
bubble.
The market's already rebounding. Apple is up 4% today. Microsoft 3%. Meta 2.7%. Nvidia 7.5%.
Yeah.
But it's still down.
Oh no, it's down 7.5%. Down 7.5%.
That's on top of the 16 from yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Nvidia, the problem is that they may just go, well, we may have enough Nvidia cards now. like if it's 95% more, or if it's if it's 5%, takes 5% of the thing. There's a lot of Nvidia cards out there. It just means that this painful demand for Nvidia cards may slow down a lot, which is the challenge.
We'll definitely be covering DeepSeek and all of this tomorrow on our what is currently the show formerly named This Week in Google, soon to be renamed Intelligent Machines, our AI show. So yes, we'll next Tuesday, I guess Jason will be here, right? And we'll do the colorful charts. Do not leave your resume, your 1040 on the office printer. A tax form, thank you, Andy, for this. This is from SFist. A tax form left on an Apple Office printer has sparked a proposed gender discrimination class action lawsuit involving more than 12,000 current and former female employees at Apple who claim they were systematically paid less. It started when Justina Jong discovered her male colleague's tax form on a printer, his 1040, showing her $10,000 more than she did for an equivalent role. Judge in San Francisco Superior Court gave the case a go-ahead to proceed. They're still trying to get class action status.
On the contrary, do leave your 10.
Oh, yes, do. I guess it's a good thing.
So we can make sure everybody's getting paid the same.
Well, this is why
equal pay for equal work, right?
Employers are always telling their employees, don't tell anybody what you make. And it is illegal to do that. You cannot retaliate for people doing that, at least in the state of California.
And Apple's actually still in trouble for basically asking people, well, how much were you making at your previous role? The things that basically the questions during the job review and the offer process that are illegal in California.
Yeah. That's all right. It's all gonna be legal soon. Apple has bought a street in Boston, on Boylston. Boylston is the best Boston street, I think. $88 million. What are they going to put there, Andy?
No. They basically bought the property that the Boston, the Boston
Apple Store is in.
Landmark Apple Store has been in.
Okay.
Which is interesting because I didn't realize they had been. I didn't realize that they've been renting it for that long. Like that.
Since 2008.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a very pretty store.
It's very pretty. It's like I guess what you'd call a glass staircase Apple store. There are glass staircase Apple stores, and then there are not glass staircase Apple stores. It's 3 floors.
This is one of them.
It's all huge glass front. There's also It's also in a really good spot. It's like 2 blocks away from the Boston Public Library from Copley Square. Coincidentally, it's also only 2 blocks away from the brand new Google company store that opened on Newbury Street just like a year ago. The Google store is not nearly as nice. Also, the Wi-Fi is not quite as fast. I have tried both of them. It's easier to find a seat at the Google store.
Yeah.
I mean,
should we do a Vision Pro segment? Do we have enough material to do a Vision Pro segment?
No,
unless we want to talk about.
Unless you like.
Wait a minute. Yes, there is. Play the Vision Pro theme. I found a story.
It's time to talk the Vision Pro.
One story. Apple's next immersive Vision Pro film involves bull riding and is coming soon.
I'm not excited.
Man versus Beast arrives next week to take you on a bull riding adventure. That's guaranteed to make you barf.
Yeah, I was going to say that's just.
My
the
guess
Poison
is
Control Center will say, "Hey, try this out if you've just swallowed something you shouldn't."
Friday, if January 31st, it'll come out. Apple's description: hang on tight as professional bull riders take you inside the rodeo and show you what it takes to compete in the dangerous sport.
I think that I doubt they're going to put them on the bull, but I think that what you're going to get is the advantage of a bull riding situation is that there's a lot of close quarter stuff that's got a lot of vanishing points from a 3D perspective. So it probably feel very, there's a lot going on that will feel very dimensional when you look at it. I think that I don't. Again, when we talk about Apple Intelligence, like so far the content that Apple's put out as immersive has, I get less interested every time. Like I'm not more interested in doing it. Like I was like immersive. We were excited about the first movie. The movie was pretty good, and then the next thing was not quite as good, and the next thing was not quite as good. And so
how about this? The second episode of Elevated, which takes viewers to a crisp and serene
one of the worst things that they did, because there's the problem is that the resolution doesn't support and there's no spatiality to it. There's no 3D to it because you're too far away from everything. So there's no parallax. Like what makes immersive look great is 5 to 20 feet. And everything more than 5 to 20 feet just looks like.
Well, maybe you'll be excited about free solo climbing in Mallorca. That's also going to.
That's sure. I mean, if it's anything like that parkour, like the parkour was a disaster. Like it was just like watching the grass grow. Like it was, like parkour is something
maybe
I actually like to watch.
Steve Carell to do that.
Parkour.
Yeah, so he would
the
actually
camera
probably
work with Dwight Schrute. Maybe we should have Dwight Schrute operating the camera for that. Then.
I mean, Justine Ezerick did an original. She did one of her early videos on YouTube was parkour. They should have Justine do a parkour.
You know what? I think a lot of people would watch that.
That would be very popular. So
she does like jujitsu, right? She's like
now her early parkour was probably 2007 or 2006, and it was her and her sister, I think, and they were just like, no, they're kind of hopping. It was kind of that was the joke. So they were just jumping around, but it was a good classic early YouTube video. So I think that. What I'm really excited about is I think that the camera is probably getting closer to we expect to see the new camera before NAB, and I think once the immersive camera gets into the hands of many people who've already done this a couple times, I think that the kind of content that we're going to see available on the headset is going to change dramatically. Like, I think that it's even 10 or 15 or 20 of these cameras out there, you're going to start seeing content. So I think that April is where a lot of us are looking to see, like, what do my friends do with it? Like, I don't know if I'll get one, but what do my friends do with it? But
that's something I've always wanted to ask you, Alex. Like, I thought that one of the most interesting things about Apple's then hypothetical VR headset with cameras would be not these like Dr. Tongue 3D house of would you like another Diet Coke? Whoop, boo, whoop. boo. But the idea of like a YouTube sort of thing where people are creating immersive videos based on where they are, what they're doing, what they think is interesting. Like, we haven't seen that. Like, where could people post videos that other Apple Vision Pro users could then benefit from, even if they do have to have that rent that $30,000 camera.
She was so young. I'm watching the video. This is hysterical.
Like, oh my God, she's not even wearing completely pink. It's only the top. That's how long ago it was.
Parkour! Wow, they were so young. Wow, that's so funny.
So good.
This is back when it was Mommy Pack My Lunch. Yeah. I would watch an immersive video of this.
Exactly.
I would watch it.
I think
parkour.
If I get the camera, we'll get Justine to do one in LA or something like that. So
that was 18 years ago.
Where to put this content?
Yeah, we're getting old.
Oh my God.
So, so I think that it's not the big whatever, but you do have to feel it. And there's two different things. There's spatial and immersive. So spatial is what you're shooting with stereo 16:9. So it's two left and right 16:9, and that's what you can shoot with your phone. There's other cameras that'll do that. Immersive is the 180-degree 3D that you feel like you're there. It doesn't mean that you're in that environment, but doesn't really feel that special if you don't see any kind of 3D element to it. I think that Apple took it too far in some places with a variety of things. You see glimpses of genius in the Rhino section, where the Rhino walks up to you, and I don't know, I even felt myself pull back a little bit as it runs up to you. There's moments of that, of like, oh, that really works, but a large portion of it, number one is you don't want to cut that much. So Apple keeps on showing stuff where they're cutting all the time, and that's not really it. It's not as good of not as good. I don't think it's as good of experience when you start cutting quickly between a lot of things. Apple has a tendency to want to drive you towards, a lot of their content's driving you towards the edges. So they're having you want to look back and forth. The problem is that you really want to use that outer area as ambient content and not remind the person that they're only seeing 180 degrees all the time. So you don't actually want to drive you want them to feel like they're looking at something, but it's still kind of happening comfortably, like you were in an audience and you were looking at something that's there. That's usually where it's been the most effective in our experience. And I've done a lot of 360 and 180 and 16:9. So it's just that you look at them in very different worlds about what you want to do with those. And I think that it'll be interesting I just feel like Apple keeps on and this is the pitfall that every company has made. So it's not like Apple is new. Meta has done the same thing, and Google did that as well to some degree, which is you get a bunch of cinematographers or directors that you respect who have only done films, and then you ask that you give them a new camera and they just do goofy things with it. Because they've never done any immersive. they don't know what that looks like. They just have a bunch of opinions about how this is all going to work. And there's a bunch of people that have never. We've all had these cameras that are like, I have this. This is the best you can do right now, which is this is the Canon R5C, and so this is. But it's it's not as high resolution. It's not as high frame rate, so it is. This is the first camera at high frame rate and 8K per eye. And most importantly, there's an actual post pipeline that can generate the content that's going to be available for the headset. And that hasn't because what's happening is Blackmagic's not only building the camera, but they're also building the software that's going to manage the camera, that's going to output it to it, and they're working with Apple to do it. Like, it's not like they're trying to figure this out and look at the tea leaves. And so that generation of those, now to the point was asked before, is who's going to be able to watch it? That pipeline and SDKs are available, and I know that with Stream Voodoo, I know that we're already able to do it with the phone. And the reason that I'm shooting with this camera is so the folks at Stream Voodoo and others can take that immersive footage and figure out how to get it into being able to make it available. And there'll be, I think Vimeo is another partner for Apple that's already started doing spatial. I would expect Vimeo to make it available to be able to let you watch immersive, as well as Stream Voodoo is probably another one. I think that Sandwich is probably I'm going to guess is going to build something, because Sandwich has already been building theater experiences for spatial. So those are, and Apple has done a fairly good job. There's still a lot of stuff left out of the SDK, I think, and the APIs, but especially the SDK, it's there, but you have to kind of hunt for it. So I think but Apple, I think, is going to spend a lot of effort on not trying to do this all themselves, but empowering people. And this is the first time we've ever been empowered with a camera that is relatively affordable. Like the cameras that do this, when I bought the Ozo camera, that was $60,000, and it did not do the same quality that this one does. So it is. These are. I think it's going to be interesting. I think, but I'm less interested in what Apple's releasing now, and more interested in. I think that Apple had to do what it did so that it would know what it wanted from a camera and how to build the stuff that tie into the camera. And what they're doing with that headset, by the way, is revolutionary. Like how they're managing the matching up of interaxial from the camera and interocular on the headset, and how they're doing all the bits and pieces is unlike what anybody else is doing. Yeah. And so it's exciting. It's just that we need more people to be able to go out and shoot it, and we're about to have that.
100%. I mean, that's why, like, my level of interest and excitement is not so much in, oh wow, we finally have like a really good, like almost professional grade $30,000 camera that can be leased out. I'm more interested in, I don't care if it's being produced, but if they're being recorded by people who are just wearing a Vision Pro, or even that feature that I can't remember the name of, where Apple's getting spatial photos and spatial videos just out of taking video through multiple lenses, multiple sensors on an iPhone at the same time. I don't care if it's not terribly good and it's not professional. I like the fact that here is an experience through somebody's eyes that all they decided was this was going to be worth taking spatial video of, and then being able to share that. Like I'm thinking back to when Google had their Google Cardboard, which their basic idea of, well, what if we just like have your phone like held like 2 inches from your face and have two different stereo visions? The idea of I could be standing in the middle of the Boston Public Library, suddenly think that, gee, I think this would be a really good space for people to be able to stand here and just look around at will at all this artwork, and I could just simply take a photosphere using this one lens and upload it anywhere, and now somebody who has one of those phone holders can actually view it. That's what I'm really excited about. I think what happens.
From a 16:9 perspective, right now with something like Stream Voodoo, I can open up the phone, send you a link from that phone, just like, hey, there's a link. This is what we did with Twit. I started the video, I sent a link, it was sent out to a couple thousand people that had downloaded the app, and 650 people were watching Twit in their headsets, in their Apple Vision Pros, and it was that easy to do that. So the technology's there, and you can do that as a live stream right now. So the technology's there to do that as well. The immersive is going to be at 90 frames a second at 8K per eye. You're talking about more than 100 megs a second potentially. So it's a lot of like being able to do that live, and how that looks live is going to take a little bit more time to kind of figure out. But we'll see as it comes out what we can do live. But as far as experiencing things, I think it's going to be it's the camera that I've been the most excited about probably in a decade. Like it just because we've been on those rocks for a long time, and finally it's like, we've been cutting our legs on the ice for a long time, and they're like, hey, we've got an icebreaker. And we're like, oh, that looks really pretty. So anyway, hopefully we'll get to play with it soon.
And that's the Vision Pro segment.
Now you see, now you know, we're done talking the Vision Pro.
More Vision Pro content per hour than the next leading Vision Pro podcast. I just want you to know. Apple has introduced the 2025 Black Unity collection. Very pretty. I like the colors. Yeah. Apple Watch Black Unity Sport Loop Watch Face, iPhone and iPad papers, of course, because just a few days away from Black History Month, the shortest month of the year. Yeah, these are nice. Yeah.
I wonder if anybody's going during the shareholders meeting next month and the financial results this week, if anyone's going to be foolish enough to challenge Tim Cook on DEI initiatives.
Oh, wow!
Because I think that's where you'll see like icy Tim come out.
Apple says its watch bands are safe to wear despite the fact that the fluoroelastomer contains forever chemicals, a high level of per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFASs. This is a class action lawsuit was filed by somebody saying, well, there was a study, right, that said there was PFAS in these things, and the University of Notre Dame did research. 22 fitness tracker and smartwatch bands, 15 had PFAS. Apple said it issued a statement saying the bands are safe. In addition to our own testing, we work with independent laboratories to conduct rigorous testing and analysis of the materials used in our products, including Apple Watch bands.
Yeah, and I think
they did
also
not deny that the chemicals were there.
Yeah, and that study didn't say there was a link between those chemicals and anything bad happening, just simply establishing that, they exist and, they could be transmitted through the skin. And because these are fitness watches where you're probably going to be sweating into them, that's probably more of a thing to think about than on any other sort of thing. I think that
the cheap bands don't have them. That's the funny thing. It's the more expensive bands.
But didn't Apple say like a couple of years ago that they were, as part of one of their environmental impact things, that they're trying to get rid of those things from that?
I'm pretty sure because the fact that they take so long to break down is the biggest issue, right?
Yeah.
And that is something that they were looking at. I'm pretty sure I remember that as well.
Yeah. No Oscar nominations for Apple this year. Apple, of course, won a Best Picture award a couple of years ago with Coda. 0 nominations this year. But I think that reflects what we've been saying all along, which is that Apple is very squirrely about its movie ambitions. It does have a big movie coming out this year, F1, a Brad Pitt vehicle, and based on of course, F1 Formula One motor racing. If it doesn't do well, I think that might be the end.
The rumor is that within 2 years, most of the streamers are not going to be doing too much features. They just don't. They don't. Yeah. We've been talking about this for 3 or 4 years. A feature film does not pan out for a streamer. Like it's not a good investment. And since streamers are doing all the production, it's pretty. So it looks like almost everybody's moving towards series. It'll be really interesting to see. This is a make or break year for Hollywood because a bunch of the movies got delayed, so they're all coming out this year. If this year goes well, they buy another couple of years. If this year goes bad, there's going to be a lot of work to right the ship for the next couple of years because people expect it to do really well. They expect this to be a blockbuster year, and if it's not, it's going to be difficult.
It was 15 years ago today that I burned my invitations to all Apple events forever.
With Skype. Skype hit a laptop with Skype turned around. I saw it. I saw yesterday. I saw the stink eye. I remember watching it.
Oh yeah,
and watching Steve look down at you and give you the stink eye, and I was like,
it's on tape. Busted. There's a video of it. Anyway, Steve Jobs announced the original iPad January 27th, 2010, 15 years ago yesterday.
Yerba Buena.
1.5 decades. Yeah, it was at Yerba Buena Center. So last Apple event I went to. I never got invited back again. They sold 300,000 units on launch day in April 2010. Wow.
And that was really big. I mean, there was usually this was not like the big celebration, all these civilians in. This really was like more of a press oriented event. And so we're all taking our notes. We're all trying to make sure that our MiFis are still connected to the internet so we could live blog and live. And when he announced the price, nobody was expecting it to be that
stunning.
Cheap. There was actually a gasp because people just looked suddenly, what? I didn't just hear that. Did I just hear that?
Yeah. $500.
It just totally exceeded expectations. And it was also big because it was a reminder of how Steve was winding down physically at that point. And how important this must have been for him to be there. Yeah, and he was still, so I spent a lot of my time just watching him. Even when they were playing the videos, I was he could if I leaned a little bit, I could sort of see him off the side of the stage, watching, but still with his hands behind his back, watching the video. And it was a very big day for a lot of reasons. I think that it bookends the Steve Jobs era very, very nicely. This was another thing that he couldn't summon the sort of energy that he had for the iPhone rollout, but you could see the same sort of like, I can't wait to show people this finally. We've been sitting on this for a while.
Well, I think the iPad was really designed first, right? It was the iPhone was the test for the iPad, and I think that Steve thought that the iPad would be more popular than it is. I mean, it's very popular. A lot of people use it, but I think he really thought it was the complete replacement for the.
I think he thought it was the next generation.
The next generation. Well, the funny thing is that I think one of the biggest problems that iPads have is that they last for so long. So effectively, I have an iPad here. I realized I installed something and someone said, "Oh, you're using that on an older iPad," and I was like, "How old is this?" And I realized it's like 5 years old, but it's working great. And I think that's the challenge that Apple has, is that the problem really is that a lot of the software doesn't push the iPads hard as much as they can actually go. And so you end up being able to use them forever, which isn't as good if you're trying to sell them. But
yeah. Apparently, if you want, you can buy 4 of Karl Lagerfeld's iPod Nano 5th generation.
Just what I always wanted.
For a mere €600.
but they're super blinged out. They're in. He was like an iPod fan and collector. He had like hundreds of them. So you see, like, when did they make a yellow colorway in the iPad? No, they never did. He just basically had one made for himself.
Wow. Did he? So after third party did it, or aftermarket, or he didn't get Apple to do it, did he?
I don't know, but it looks perfect. They have professional. They have professional photos in the Sotheby's catalog, and it looks like a professional job. It doesn't look like they just got like a vinyl wrap around it.
Wow.
I mean, he's Karl Lagerfeld. He has manufacturing contacts who could basically say, prototype me one of these.
It's estimated that Lagerfeld, of course, was the lead designer for Chanel, had over 500 iPods when he passed away. Wow. Lagerfeld, this is from Warren Ellis's website, famously had an iPod nanny to digitize his collection for the iPods and add new music to the devices. He treated them like cassette tapes, basically.
Yeah. So each one had its own little. Yeah. Wow. Just talk about having so much money.
I didn't have like a CD case, but it's filled with like
iPods,
different pouches with iPods on them. Flip. There it goes. So easy listening. Wow. Yacht rock.
And then here's the iPod Classic and a microphone all blinged out. Only €500, the current bid.
What's the microphone for?
I don't know. What do we care, right?
Style.
It's an SM58 with an on-off switch. So I don't know. Maybe he had that when it. Yeah, it's shiny. Maybe he had.
It's just an interesting pairing. I'm like, who decided those two went together?
I am singing to my iPod on my blinged out microphone. Yeah. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Gentlemen, prepare your picks of the week. We are about to wrap things up. Before we do, though, I want to make a emotional plea. What are you laughing at, Micah? I'm on my knees here begging you to join Club Twit. It's actually Micah and I both do special content for Club Twit. You do that amazing crafting corner, which is wonderful. If we get 100 new members today, I will stream my flop and fold on my focaccia later today.
Nice.
How about that? We did stream Lisa making her famous bolognese. The club is a great hang. It's a great place to hang out. We have a Club Twit Discord. We put special programming in there. But you also get ad-free versions of everything that we do, even video for some of the shows that we don't put out in video, like Micah's Hands on Macintosh, Hands on Tech. But mostly, you're getting the warm and fuzzy feeling that you're helping us keep this show on the air, helping pay for it's expensive to do this. And while we do have advertisers, they don't cover the entire cost. We need you to make up the difference. Now, I think we make it pretty affordable. $7 a month. You get all of those benefits. Lisa is working on me. She's wearing me down saying, bring back the annual. So maybe we're going to end up doing that. But don't wait till that happens. Join for a month, and then if we bring back the annual, you can convert it to an annual subscription. twit.tv/club twit. I think for $7 you get an awful lot of good stuff. And if you appreciate what we do here and the hard work we put in, and you want all these guys to get paid, join the club. That's the best way to support us. We appreciate it. Twit.tv/clubtwit, and thank you in advance. Now, Micah, since you're our special guest, I'll let you kick things off with the picks of the week.
All right. I got a really awesome present for Christmas this year, and I've been using it for a while now, and it is the bee's knees.
That's pretty.
This is a bottle from Lark, L-A-R-Q. And here's the cool thing. When I got this, I thought that the extent of it was one of the features that it had, or two of the features that it has, and it ended up being three features. So I wanted a water bottle that would sanitize itself so that I could use it for a lot longer until I needed to wash it again, because I only use it for water, right? I'm only putting water in here, and I don't want to have to be washing it every single day if I don't have to. This has UVC light in it, and so every 15 minutes it shines UV light and keeps the bottle sanitized. That was the extent of what I really wanted from this water bottle, but it came with a couple of other features as well. It is also a Bluetooth connected device that will let you track your water intake, and it integrates with Apple Health. So if you want to track your water, then you can do that. And then it has this an LED light strip sort of thingy across the top, and you can set it to kind of flash and give you a reminder, hey buddy, you said you wanted to take 90 ounces in today, so do that. And then last but not least, this is the thing that I didn't even know that it had. They now have a straw that has a little filter at the bottom. And so you can use like tap water, put tap water in there, and it filters that tap water as you're drinking it. I don't use tap water. I use a reverse osmosis water. But if I was in a situation where, I knew that only tap water was going to be available to me, I can go ahead and stick that straw in, and it'll help to filter that as I'm using it. Nice. The other cool thing is, if you ever need to, say you're going to a place and you aren't 100% sure, you can activate the UV light for an extended period of time, and it will help to clean the water, not just the bottle itself. So yeah, this is the Lark bottle Pure Viz 2. It's got all of that in there because Lark also makes a pitcher. So this is the bottle, and then this is the second version of the bottle. It is pricey. That's why it was my big Christmas gift at $120. But A, it comes in green, which already sells me, and B, it looks great, and it has all those cool features in it. So this has been basically with me nonstop since Christmas, and will continue to be with me because I think it's amazing.
Very nice. Wow. And how big is it? It's 25 ounces? Is that
yeah, this one's 24, 25 ounces. There's a larger one that's a little more pricey. So if you take in a lot more water, you don't like refilling it a lot, then you can get that one instead.
Oh, that straw, that's a hefty little filter on there.
See
that's
that?
Is that must be carbon.
Yeah, it does.
Wow.
It has actually a few things in it so that it filters not just what you'd expect, but also chlorine and a few other chemicals out of the water.
And can you choose to use it with or without that filter?
Yes, I use it without most of the time because I have reverse osmosis. So in fact, if I unscrew the lid, you'll see I don't have the straw attached at all. Right. It just has a spout at the top, and then you just connect the straw, and then the spout becomes what you can suck out of. It's closed most of the time. You flip it up to actually access the spout. It's really nice. Oh, and USB-C charging, which obviously is a big thing. I want to make sure that it does USB-C.
And eucalyptus green, which was, of course, very important to you, I know.
Exactly, 100%. It's funny, I told a friend, she said, what did you get for Christmas? And I said, I got this water bottle. Her first question back to me was, is it green?
Yes.
I said,
Somebody
yes,
knows Micah pretty well. Nice. I think I'm going to get one of these. That looks great. But I'm going to get really black because I'm a
it's pretty sleek.
Dark person, and I want to get the giant one. I want more ounces.
Yeah, I will say that's the one. They were out of stock when my significant other purchased them of the larger one, and so the smaller one, I do find myself refilling it a couple of times during the day, which isn't a huge deal. But if you are a pretty big water drinker, you might want to get the larger one.
I just found when I travel, I thought I would want the larger one, but then it turned out with the smaller one because I can't fit it in my bag.
Oh, travel's different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is that the water bottle I was using before didn't fit in my cup holder very well. This one easy, which I like.
Right.
So yeah, that can be sometimes the difference is how are they, designing it so that I know if it's going to fit where I want it to, or as you
Do
said,
you
like, put it in a
recommend the
bag.
silicone boot?
I didn't know there was a Das Boot.
You didn't know.
I don't know why. What is it for?
So
what does it do?
I can tell you why. I can tell you.
Why?
I don't know why they put it in, but I've worked on some
Clank
at events. People
Clank.
there's the move to metal is like you hear clanking in seminars all
Clank.
time. It's
Oh
like
yeah, and
ding,
if you're in like
ding,
a theater that has a incline,
it's
clink,
just-
clink, 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 clink.
well, no, it's not his fault. Just every time someone sets one down, you hear it go dank. And so I'm sure that someone said, "Hey, if we put
Dank.
silicone on it, it won't make any noise when you set it down."
Yeah,
Sure,
so
that's what it is.
I don't recommend it because I'm not in a place where that happens a lot. But if you plan on going to a lot of seminars, Leah,
If
maybe
you're in
you
a
should get
seminar
the
with
boot.
like hardwood floors, and I'm just telling you, with 200 people in it,
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a constant din. Like it's constant. Like it's just like ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding. And if you're the person doing AV and it's getting to your mics, you're especially conscious to the fact that people are ruining your mic, your record, because you're just like. So anyway,
Yeah,
I'm sure that's
wow.
why the boot's there.
That's probably why. Yeah, because it's a nice. Well,
Yep.
I don't know if you can hear that.
It's
Maybe as
metal.
I'm talking, it's
Metal.
picking up, yeah.
Metal. Yes, Scooter X says you need a silicone boot. Alex Lindsay, pick of the week.
So I don't use teleprompters all the time, but when I do, I like to try to have a lot of control over them. We have clients who oftentimes want to have a teleprompter, and a lot of creators that we work with want to have teleprompters. And so I'm always on the scout for a new one that is even better than the last ones. And so we started discussing this one called Power Prompter, and I really like it. This is by suborbital.io. And I just can't find any tool that it doesn't have that I would want. So if you look at this here, so now you can see it it looks a little odd right now because it's feeding back into itself, but that's a semi-transparent overview shot there
Oh,
of
interesting.
what it's
So you
doing.
can see you can see the view.
yourself underneath it.
Nice.
Normally. You would
That's
right
a
now
nice
it just looks
feature.
like kind of an arty feature here.
Yeah.
Now you have the controller here, and what's interesting about it is you have a lot. You can decide overlays. I can set up different background images. I can decide, how much how many lines are highlighted. In that process there. I'll turn this video preview off so that you can just see it there. And then you have the arrow, of course. You can decide, what color, what you want to have there. You can decide, what the position is, like where is your target, depending on your teleprompter. Oftentimes that's important. Of course, you have the flip controls. Now in video, you can record video here, which is kind of interesting. So, what that's really good for is if you're a creator and you want to be able to talk and see yourself, but you're also looking at your teleprompter, how do you read and see what your reaction is at the same time? And you can do it right inside the app. So you can do the recording here, which is new for me to be able to do that. Also with displays, a lot of times what happens is we want to display this teleprompter and have different settings for different, like the person who's doing it wants to see it in one way. I want to send it to a confidence monitor another way. And I can actually I have 3 other monitors that are connected. So I could just grab one of these monitors. I just click it on and it'll take over that monitor as a teleprompter. And it has its own settings in that teleprompter. I can also just spawn a new window. So I can say, I just want another window, and I can drag this. Now this one still has, a variety of setups here, but I can basically, turn a lot of the displays on and off. And so this is but I can and then you can do it to n number of devices. And so, if you're looking for a teleprompt software, I think this is my new favorite. This one here, as far as, and again, we oftentimes get into productions where someone really needs a teleprompter, really wants a teleprompter. And we always want to have, and little things like being able to edit easily, we get kind of touchy about being able to just kind of grab onto, stuff, and just type it in and not have it be, something that is, and it instantly results here, but you don't see my work if you're the end user. So anyway, so this is it's pretty useful, for us. And that's, again, it's become my new favorite, and it's, written. One of the things that makes teleprompt software better on a Mac is when it's written for the Mac. Like it's not, this isn't a cross-platform, like it kind of works on both. It really is just built to use the subsystems on the Mac. And so I definitely again, this is the new software that we're using now, and we're pretty happy with.
Tell me a little bit about the physical setup, because it's just software. You have
this
to
is just the software. You still need to put it on a
screen.
You still have to have a teleprompt, teleprompter. But you can also run this on a confidence monitor that's right under the screen or right over the top. Again, it does the overlay over top of video, so you could throw it. That video could be anything. So I could be throwing. One of the things that we do a lot of is we might have someone who wants to do a prepared talk, and that video isn't them, it's the remote room that they're speaking to. So it's everybody, they can kind of see everyone behind them, whether they're nodding or not, and they're still able to do that. Now, we've had to do that with overlays. This does it right in the software. Nice. So it's pretty convenient as far as how that works. You would still need a physical teleprompter, but it does have, like, for each screen, whether you want to, you can decide whether you want to flip the text back and forth. That's usually a pretty important thing with teleprompt software.
Yeah, because if you're using a mirror, you need to be able to do that.
Yeah, so you have that. You have both the vertical flip here, so you can see it. If I open up a new one here, I think you can.
Nice.
You'll be able to see it, but you can do the vertical flip and the horizontal flip. That's there. So
very nice.
So
it is. There's a 30-day free trial even from Suborbital.
And I think that they do a 90-day. I was reading on their website. I didn't know that until today when I was getting the link for this. I guess they do 90-day, no questions, return if you don't like it. So you can, and it's not a subscription. It's $50 once, and then you're off to the races. But they say that they'll return your money if you're not happy with it. And if you're doing teleprompt work, again on the Mac, I haven't seen a better one.
Nice, thank you, Alex Lindsay. And finally, Mr. Andy Iannacco's pick of the week.
We mentioned earlier a blog post that Paul Kavasis made about how badly Apple Intelligence can tell you who won the Super Bowl. He mentioned a graphics tool in the blog post that I had not heard of, but I've instantly become a huge fan of. It's called Retro Batch. And the point of this app is to produce. It's hard to limit what it can do. Whatever you want to do with any file or collection of files or source of files, it can do it for you automatically. And it does it by basically, here is a toolbox of things that it can do with image files, and then you simply click them together into a workflow like Legos. So for instance,
this is nice.
For instance, I've got when I dump my my SD card and clear it out, I normally archive it, but just basically it's just a folder full of raw files. So I can just simply create a workflow that says take everything from this SD card, convert each one of these raw files into JPEGs of 800 by 600. Also create an image grid, and then write it and all of those files to this other removable device that I have, so I can archive it correctly. Or you can do things like, here is a PDF, please spit out all of the pictures from this PDF, but I also want you to classify them using artificial intelligence, and anything that has a picture of a baby in it, I want you to divert it into this folder. And then I want you to scale it down, apply an unsharp mask, crop it down to these dimensions, add this watermark, and then send it over here. And you can script it. You can set it up so that any time a picture hits a certain folder, it will automatically be processed with the workflow that you've defined. It even works on clipboard. So if you're in a repetitive task where you're just looking for stuff and then copying it from one place and then pasting it into a new document, you can have it so that it basically waits for when an image file enters your clipboard, automatically apply the the workflow you've applied to it, and then essentially the next time you paste, it will take this 1600 by 2400 image that you created, and on your clipboard will be a downsized, sharpened, compressed JPEG version of it with a drop shadow and with a watermark and all this other stuff with it. It's really, really cool. It's if you don't download it and try it right now, just remember that it exists. And the next time you have anything that involves a repetitive action, download it and try it. There's a free 7-day free trial. There's like a basic version and a pro version. Like the pro version allows you to do scripting, allows you to do the AI stuff. The basic version is $20 and you own it. The pro version is $40 and you own it. And I wish I could go back in time and hand this back to me when I was writing books. And the number of times that I would hear from my publisher 1 week before the drop deadline said, oh, by the way, we've just decided that we need all of your image files in a different format, even though, yeah, you talked to us about this like at the start of the project and agreed that anything that needed to be done, you would do on your end, but we decided that we don't have to do that anymore. I could have just created this with retro batch, basically pointed it at my project folder, and it would have automatically transmogrified in any way, shape, or form that I needed to. Really, really great app, and it's so beautifully done that I just want to keep playing with it to see what it can do. It's the chainsaw effect I sometimes talk about. A great tool or great piece of software. First time you have a electric reciprocating saw or chainsaw, you cut up the fallen branches, the reason why you bought it, and then does such a good job with that, you start looking for other things you can cut with it because you just want to see what it can do. And that's how good this app is. It's called Retro Batch 2. It's from, sorry, I just tabbed away from her. It's from Flying Meat software, flyingmeat.com. And
they do Acorn. I mean, they know.
They also make the Acorn image
they're
editor.
fantastic.
So it's just great stuff.
Really great. I was not aware of this program. Good to know.
I thought I was not aware, but I have to admit, I went to look for it and I was like, oh, I own the original.
I own it.
The Retro Batch Pro. I haven't used it as much as I think I used it a lot when I got it, and then I just haven't had.
It's one of those things when you need it, though. It's nice to have.
If you could say, if there were a kid in my neighborhood that would take $20 to process these 800 photos, I would feel like I was taking advantage of them, but I would pay it. Yeah, that's why. Even if you just download it to have it there so that you'll remember that it exists, and you'll say, I would much rather have the next 2 hours of my life available to me than $20. I can make another $20. I cannot make another 2 hours of my life.
Yes. Retro Batch 2 from flyingmeat.com. That's Andy Ihnatko. When are you going to be on GBH next?
Next week from Wednesday, I believe, at 12:30 p.m. Go to wgbhnews.com to listen to it live or later.
Love it. Micah's Crafting Corner coming up on the 19th. Mike will be back Thursday for Tech News Weekly. What are you covering? I know you tried to get the Pebble guys on, and they're too busy.
They are, but I'm going to pre-record the interview, so we still will be talking to
Excellent.
Eric Mikakovsky about the return of Pebble, so I'm really excited about that. And this is the fourth Thursday of the month, so we will also be joined by Emily Forlini of PC Mag for our Stories of the Week.
Love Emily. Yeah. Oh, that'll be fun. Yeah, the Pebble is now open source. It's back. Google allowed them to, they freed it.
Free at last.
They're trying to make new ones, and
yeah, very exciting.
So cool. Oh, I can't wait to watch that. That's this Thursday, and of course, Micah does Hands-On Tech and iOS Today, and they're recording next Tuesday. And we'll see you soon, I hope. Thank you, Micah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been great.
Always fun to have you. Jason will be back next week, but it's always nice when we get Micah on. And of course, Alex Lindsay, he's at officehours.global. What's the latest?
We're answering questions. It turns out every day we just get
That's
up there.
all people want. They just want questions.
Yeah. I mean, tomorrow is our audio day. We have a lot of audio experts from all over the world, and so we tend to get heavy questions in that area. Thursday is video day. We've got a lot of video experts, and Friday are IT, so cloud production in the cloud or AWS questions, and then on the weekends we just kind of we don't stream it publicly, and we all just have internal conversations. So those are some of my favorites. Sunday is a day that we people ask about office hours itself, and we just kind of have more of an internal chat. So those are all things that we're doing on a weekly basis.
Very good.
We're quickly approaching our 5-year anniversary of not missing a day.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, wow. Pretty cool.
Crazy, man. Crazy.
And we're now, we're about to start streaming to LinkedIn. We do, if you watch it and the color looks at all odd, we are working on, we're streaming HDR to YouTube. So it's HDR 4K 60 to YouTube. We're about to add 5.1 to it just because we can. But it also is pushing the outer envelope of what YouTube streams. If you're watching it in an HDR set, it's going to look great. If you watch it in SDR, sometimes it's we're still working with YouTube engineering to perfect that look. So we're constantly kind of trying to push the outer edge there.
Very nice. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Micah. Thanks to all of you. A special thanks to our Club Twit members who make this show possible. If you're not yet a member, twit.tv/clubtwit. It's thanks to you. We can stream in all those different platforms. Discord for the club members, YouTube, Twitch. Yes, we're on LinkedIn. Yes, we're on TikTok. I don't know how that happened, but we are. We're also on Kick and Facebook, and I'm sure something else that I've left out. 8 different platforms. So watch us live. X.com. Watch us live, and that way you get to see the show, the first draft of it. But, of course, it's a podcast, so after John Ashley takes it in hand, we'll have a polished final version available for you at the website, twit.tv/MBW. There's also a YouTube channel dedicated to the video. Great way to share clips if you want to tell your friends about something you saw here today. And, of course, the easiest way to get it, subscribe in your favorite podcast player, and that way you'll get it automatically, audio or video, the minute it's done. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We will be back next Tuesday, as usual, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC. Unfortunately, the time has come for me to say, get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.